Let me see if I can see it.
Oh, okay, you'll be live soon. Okay, gotcha. So can you, okay, you can probably be on mute when it starts, but if you think something is not working, just unmute yourself and let me know if that you can do that.
Yeah.
If not, just call me. Okay, I have my phone here. Like last time, I switched off my phone also. Um, I made it silent. So can you see my screen? Okay.
I can see the screen, not your PowerPoint. I see.
How about now?
Now it's PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah,
And one
I see.
thing, can you see now the PeopleSoft page?
In Oracle Kibana, that's what I see.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see now? I kind of zoomed in a little bit. Is it like working fine?
Yeah, it works fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
you
Okay.
can zoom in. Yeah, it looks fine.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't check that yesterday. So okay. And you can see App Designer as well, right?
Yeah, now I can see it.
Perfect.
So kind of like yeah, I also can hear what you are talking. But I think if you like last time I did, if I try to play the video on web page, then they cannot hear it.
Okay. Yeah. See, the thing is with Zoom, right? You can, what I do, since I had that problem last time, what I've been doing is I have a separate session here on my phone so I can see what's going on. That
Yeah.
way, you can kind of see if some issues are happening with the video, at least you can find out. But what happens with this one is, I don't think you can join in multiple devices. You can only join in one.
Uh,
So I cannot really see what I am presenting. So that's really a bit inconvenient for me.
so you cannot see PowerPoint by yourself?
Well, I can see it, but I don't know if you guys are seeing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the problem last time, remember? So I had this problem.
Yeah,
That's why what I've been doing is I have a separate Zoom here on my phone, so I can see. I log in separately there. That way, I can see exactly what I'm presenting from this
that's
computer.
right. So now I can see the join button on the sessions list.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that's because I had to start the broadcast or something. So hopefully people will start joining in. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to
So
see him.
let me,
Yeah.
maybe I should quit from this page because right now I'm kind of like same level as you.
Mhm.
Let me close it, then I'll join from the
Oh
list.
no, no. I think it's better you this way because that we
Really?
can you can help me out. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But
That's
how
fine. I mean,
I think I need,
say that again.
yeah, I add now I find a place I can mute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or yeah, I can mute you also. I think that in the side, I think you should have those buttons, right?
Yeah, yeah, I found it.
Okay. How do I
And
turn?
there's a chat button, so can you see
Yes,
somebody
yes. I
chat?
see that. Yep.
Yeah,
I
so
see
if
the
something
chat.
I maybe can tap here, say something wrong or something.
Yeah, yeah, you can, but I won't be able to see this because I'm actually going to be in this computer, right? So that's another problem. So
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
if you have any problems, just unmute and just tell me. That's fine.
Okay, okay, got it.
Yeah, that should be okay. Just unmute and let me know. Hey, something is not working, moving. Or I hope it will work. It seems like it will, but you never know.
Okay, so it should
And
be.
attendees, okay. There's no one right now.
Yeah, how you know how many people join?
Yeah, you see here. Can you see my screen? There's actually an
Oh,
attendee button.
here. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
see
pressed
that.
that one. And here you can see the speakers and then listeners.
You see,
So
last time
hopefully,
when I go to the coffee and connect, it seems it's a little bit different with this.
yeah. Yeah, I think your session was different because it was set up like a networking event, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that is not for that kind of everybody is by default unmute, so everybody can talk and share the screen or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, hopefully this one should be okay. But I think there's some other sessions going on at the same time, so we may not get too many attendees, which is okay.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. Okay.
okay, so audio is clear, right? Everything is looking good so far.
Yep. Everything is
Audio,
good.
video. Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
cool. We'll wait for a few more minutes and I'll get started.
Yep. I think you can close my video. Can you?
Sorry, close your video.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will show up because you're a presenter, because you're added as a
Oh.
speaker.
Okay.
But I don't see any video here, so that's fine, right?
Okay. So just like
You
that.
can disable it. You see this icon, right? You can turn it off. It'll just show your
Oh, if
name.
I turn off, it's like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I'll just introduce you
I think
also. I'll just say that you're
rather
helping me out.
like this one is better.
Okay, yeah, that's fine too. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Taryn with Quest. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Darren, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you all?
Good, good. Yeah, I'm just trying to get used to this new SL event.
Yeah, I was just stopping in to make sure you guys had everything good to go. And it looks like you guys are live already, so everyone
Mhm.
can see and hear. If you guys do
Okay,
want to, it's fine if you guys are ready, but if you guys do want to stop the broadcast, you guys can and restart it whenever the time hits as well. So up to you all.
okay, okay. Yeah, I just did that because apparently the join button was not showing up, so that's why I started this and then
Oh, okay. That's
is that
fine. Yeah. I just want you guys
okay?
to just be aware. So if you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
did that
sure.
on purpose, that's totally fine.
Yeah. Can you see my screen here? Can you see my PowerPoint as well
Right
here?
now I see okay, yeah, there it is. So yeah, now I see your
Okay.
presentation.
Okay. I think there's a slight lag, I guess. I'm actually going to be doing a lot of demos, so
Okay.
that's why I wanted to have my colleague kind of be there and help me out in
Oh
case
yeah.
something is not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's better to have a second set of eyes on everything. But yeah, so I did see your PowerPoint and I did see whenever you switched to the demo too. So
Okay.
it
Okay.
did
Perfect.
go. I think it's just a lag for the live audience from like you in real time. So it's not that big of a, I think it might be just like a couple seconds. So
Okay. Okay. And how do I tell? Is this the right place where I can see all the people who joined? Is that where I'm looking at?
I believe so. That or the people tab also will show
Oh,
people
this
that's
one.
logged on.
Okay, because this shows a whole bunch of people in here. I don't know if all of
Yep. At the
can.
beginning, it's just the Quest staff, but then after that, yep, you can see all the attendees on there.
Okay, gotcha. So they'll show up here. Okay,
hmm
cool, cool.
Well, I'm gonna hop off and go check on a couple more sessions. But
Awesome.
if you guys need help, feel free to ping us and we'll hop back on.
Okay, so how do I do that? If I need help, how do I ping you guys?
If you can just put it in the chat, all the Quest staff, we kind of have eyes on all the chats right now, so we'll kind of keep an
Oh,
eye on it.
oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so you can see it. Okay, thank you so
Yep.
much, Sharon. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So there's the chat. Yeah, this is like a lot of new technology. It's like difficult to get used to this, right? I'm comfortable with Zoom, but this one takes a little bit more.
Yeah, you're right.
I wish there's like a client for this, like you know how we have Zoom client, like a install. That way, it's a bit more stable. You
Yeah.
never know what will happen with the browser.
Yeah. But yesterday I went to some presentation. Seems the network speed, some of them kind of slow, kind of like stuck there.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm worried about, especially when I'm doing the demos, because if something goes wrong, then it will go really bad.
Yeah, and don't know why. Some of that, some of them, most of them is okay.
Okay. All right. I don't see many people in here. If anybody is in the chat or in the session, can you send me a message on the chat? That way I know.
So yeah, you can see you can see my message.
Yeah, I see your message. I don't think anyone's joined. It's just you and me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think its time is still not there. But I saw there are more than 100 people interested and registered your presentation.
This one?
Yeah, I think I see. Let me see.
How do you see that?
One day I saw that somewhere. Let me see where I see.
Yeah, if you can send me a screenshot how to go there, I want to take a look as well.
Yeah, there's a 255 people
Really?
registered, and yeah, you cannot see it.
I cannot see right now, but maybe I'll have to check later because
So there are 255 registered, 136 interested.
Okay, that's good.
Should have lots of people.
Yeah, hello, anyone, if you're here, just send me a message on the chat just so I know, because right now it seems like it's just me and Dongmei, my colleague. Yeah, I do see that. So,
Yeah, I
okay.
didn't see anybody check.
Am I not started or something? Yeah, usually I'll have a few people join ahead, but it seems strange that no one is here yet.
Yeah. Anybody there?
No, doesn't look like it. I'll give it a minute or so in case there's some issue with this. Now what? Let me stop broadcast and maybe start over again.
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay. Okay. Maybe it's just taking time for folks to join, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you. I got it. Thanks so much. It's slightly different here, trying to get used to it. Very cool. Thanks everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. I guess it's 12:15, so let me get started here. Again, thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be part of PeopleSoft Reconnect again. It's one of my favorite conferences in the year, especially because it's like very much focused on PeopleSoft, and I love hanging out with the PeopleSoft community. And for those who don't know me, my name is Sashank Vemana. I work at Florida State University as a lead application architect. And I also have my colleague, Domega. I want to thank her for joining me just so that I don't freak out with this new technology that we're using. I know I've had some issues before, so she's kind of watching and seeing if I'm having some technical issues. So thank you to her. And Today's presentation is called Life Hacks for PeopleSoft. I've been doing this session, this type of format for the past few years now. What I do with this is I use it as an opportunity to share some of the things I've learned over the past few months, working on PeopleSoft projects, evaluating some People Tools features, and sometimes with the new features, the gaps that might exist with the features and how we can work around them as they evolve over time. So that's what I generally focus on in this presentation. And I have a different bunch of topics that are probably not related for the most part. But today I'm actually only going to be focusing on Kibana for the most part. And I'll be talking about what is Kibana. It was introduced in 858. So the features in People Tools that was introduced, how the applications like HCM, financials, how are they using this feature, and how are they providing Kibana dashboards to the customers, what we can do with them, and also how we can use that feature and probably build some of our own dashboards for reasons like potentially Oracle may not deliver in some cases, and also in some cases where it may be something that's not yet available even, and so we can start working on looking at the technology and how we can leverage that. Really quick slide here about me. It has all my contact details and everything. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to reach out to me. And I have this again on most of my presentation, just to mention that anything that I present today is to the best of my knowledge, and as of today as well, because of these new features that keep evolving with time and the new releases, and even my understanding of those could change. So for what it's worth, just take it as a I guess hopefully I just hope that you can kind of take some ideas back and see what you can do with them in your environment. And also, anything that I say does not necessarily represent the views of my employer or any other groups that I might be part of, like the Quest, Technology SIG, or Higher Ed Space, those kind of things. Okay, so before we get into People Tools and Kibana, I wanted to kind of take a high-level overview of what is the Elk Stack. And so Elk Stack is basically three products: Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. They're all open source, and they collectively are called the Elk Stack, right? And so if we put all of them together, integrate them, they kind of work very similar to how Splunk and other proprietary products work. If you know those products. So if you break it down, the Logstash is the first layer, which helps with log aggregation. So you can collect and transform log data and convert it to a format that is ingestible into a search engine, and or any other requirements, right? So the search engine is where Elasticsearch comes in. So Elasticsearch is a search engine that provides rich search and analytical capabilities. It can ingest data either in the form of log data. It doesn't care as long as you can convert them into search indexes. It can even take application data, like how we will see in the examples that I will share now from PeopleSoft as well. So that's Elasticsearch. It's very powerful in terms of from a search engine functionality point of view. And the third layer here is the Kibana, right? Kibana is it's an additional layer on top of Elasticsearch. It then takes those indexes and provides rich visualization and management capability of the data. So if you search something, it's mostly going to be text-based search, right? You get back results in the form of text, and then you might have some drilling URLs that takes you into transactions. But what Kibana does is it takes that information and it provides some really intuitive ways to visualize that data and provide ways of interacting, interfacing with that data for your users. So that is the Elk Stack at a very high level. And so what does this mean in the PeopleSoft space, right? So how does PeopleSoft use the Elk Stack? So Elasticsearch was introduced in PeopleSoft in 855, I believe. It was introduced as one of the search engine options for the search framework. The good thing about PeopleSoft is when they at least created a framework, the search framework on top, so that the backend search engine could be plug and play, right? So before there was Oracle SES available as well when Elasticsearch was introduced initially. And I think as of 8.5.7 now, Elasticsearch is the only option for the backend search for search framework. So we all know this. It's been there for many releases and for many years. I'm sure you've you use them. So, but I just want to share like a quick whiteboard of a use case. Just take the job search example, right, in HCM. So if you think about it, the job search is a pretty complex functionality in terms of how the data is presented to the user and what type of queries they might do. It can really cause some complex querying happening at the database layer and can potentially create some bottlenecks there. If we were just hitting the transactional systems on a direct basis, right? So when Elasticsearch is used for this, the advantage is that the job search data is actually indexed as search indexes in batch mode, so there's not real-time impact on the database layer. And that is where you see in those green lines, the search indexing happens on the data, and it goes through integration broker, and Elasticsearch actually stores the indexes. And then now when you have the end users hitting the system with all these complex queries and everything, it actually offloads that. It really doesn't hit the database because it goes through the web server, app server, and then it goes into Elasticsearch and displays the results. So that's where you have some really good benefits of performance. So that's high-level Elasticsearch use case, and there can be others. Like, for example, if you look at Campus Solutions application, they have the class search. It's another common example. And so we know Elasticsearch for the most part, right? So what is new in 8.5.8 is that Kibana was introduced, and technically speaking, Kibana was introduced in 8.5.7. They had provided that capability, but it was mainly not really integrated with the PeopleSoft interface. It was just there as a standalone where you can create some analytics and data visualizations based off of Elasticsearch data, but really for administrative purposes, more like the admins of Elasticsearch could have some metrics that tells us the health about the system, those kind of things. So, but 8.5.8 is when they introduced the whole stack. Actually, Logstash is also part of that, but really that's not something I want to focus on. And of course, it has its own importance, but Kibana was introduced in 8.5.8, and the way when I'm saying introduced is that they've now integrated the Kibana interface within the PeopleSoft user interface. So that's the huge thing here. And I'll show you some examples in a minute. But what this means is the whole Kibana user interface, on top of all the things that I've mentioned about the rich visualization capability that it provides, we also have this additional layer of the PeopleSoft UI, right? So you don't need your users to log into Kibana separately and do things there. They log into PeopleSoft and they're literally seeing Kibana dashboards within the UI. It brings in the natural security layer there, right? Like you log in, you're authenticated already, and then also do like some sort of row level security. For example, you can say, even if the Kibana dashboards is displaying data for all your employees, for instance, you can restrict that to say, okay, if you're in this department, you can only look at these employees. Those kind of row level security scenarios. Just like how it works in Elasticsearch, the same applies in Kibana as well. So that is okay. So next slide here, I just had a whiteboard to kind of differentiate the difference between regular visualization in PeopleSoft and what Kibana brings to the table here, right? So if you look at, let's say, any tile or dashboard that has some dynamic content in there, it was basically going through the web app layer and then hitting the database, right? What you see in the left-hand side is just a regular way of getting the data out. And that's where we've seen some issues of performance where, if you're trying to pull in some really complex queries, you're gonna see that because it just executes on load and all the users are waiting for those results to show up, right? That is a known problem in some cases with pivot grids and those kind of things. Now, if you take the same example here in Kibana visualization, if you're displaying a similar type of visualization in Kibana, it is relying on Kibana to produce that information, right? That the visualization is rendered directly from Kibana. And that in turn relies on Elasticsearch indexes, and that all that happens in batch mode. So there is no real-time impact on the application layer or transactional system. So that is the beauty about this and why it is significant here. in certain use cases. And also, if you look up, there's several research done that visual information is more intuitive than, of course, just text, right? There's plenty of research done on this. I just pulled up something from the internet. So 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual, and 40% of people respond better to visual information. Obviously, I didn't do this research. I just pulled it off the internet. But you can see the similar information presented in a visual format has a little bit more of an impact than actual showing bullet points, right? So that's high-level overview of things. So let's jump in and take a look. I'm going to switch here to a PeopleSoft environment that I have. So this is a HCM PAM34 instance, and it is on 85803. And the HCM application PAM34 introduced some Kibana dashboards, which I'll show you here. You can see that this application details is actually a Kibana dashboard. So this is something that's being rendered from Kibana. And the same tile is also on this recruiting insight dashboard. Also, I just wanted to show like the difference between, you can see this application details tile, which is actually rendered from Kibana, and all these other tiles are actually dynamic tiles, but they're actually coming from the transactional system, either through Pivot Grid or some other form of dynamic content, right? And so that's the tile view of the dashboard from Kibana, and then you can drill in, and when you click on this, you go into this page. So if you see here, it's actually a PeopleSoft page, right? It's a PeopleSoft page. It has all the security and everything built in, and then it provides this visualization capability on top of that. So you can see some really rich way of looking at your application details. So here I can see a map of all the different states where the applications are coming from, and then I have a chart here which shows the count of applications per city, and then another one that says, what are all the internal applications versus external applications. And so it's pretty cool here what you can do with this, how you can present the data. And now you can also like slice and dice the information. For example, I can say, okay, I want to look at all the applications within Florida, right? And that will automatically update all the other visualizations. And I can also now see, okay, these are all the 7 applications, and I can drill into them and go into the transaction. So not only is it providing like slicing and dicing capability and analysis, you can do some really cool analysis of the data depending on what visualizations you present. You can also do stuff like actually navigate to a transaction. So it helps with navigation as well. So that's another feature of using this, because you can actually drill into a transaction, right? So you can let me get rid of this filter here and say, show you another example of how you can use this. There's actually a free text search capability. So I can come here and type and say, hey, I want to look at all the applications entered by Hank, and then it shows me all the results that there, and I can kind of navigate to those transactions from here. So you can see how this is different from me navigating to that page and then looking up a search page and looking for this data, compared to this, the difference in how the experience is for the end user, right? So that is what is delivered. And so I wanted to see, okay, what can we do with this? This is, so are we just dependent on Oracle to deliver these, or can we build our own, right? So I wanted to kind of take some example and build my own dashboard end to end, and kind of see what the process is to build this. So if we can do one example or proof of concept, that means we can literally take any data that means to us or impacts our end users and display them using Kibana visualizations where it's appropriate. So let me open up a page here. So going to People Tools, Integration Broker, Service Operations Monitoring, and Asynchronous Services. So this page is the Integration Broker page that would, hang on guys, I should have disabled something. I revealed way too much in advance. This was supposed to be another demo. Hang on a second. Let me disable this related content real quick so it's not in the way. And go back to the asynchronous services. And so most of PeopleSoft developers, analysts, architects probably know about this page. It's the asynchronous services messaging page where you can look at all the messaging data for all the service operations for asynchronous services. And you can see all this different status of the service operation, and you can filter it by time and those kind of things, right? And then you can also drill into transactions here. So I can go into all the user profiles, service operations, and then I can drill into transactions, specific messages. And once I get in there, I can look up the XML and potentially do something with it. So that's how I would navigate to this data, right? So I thought, okay, let me take this data and then present that as a visualization in Kibana, right? So that's going to be the example here. So I'll show you what I built, and then I'll show you how I built it. Okay. So go back to homepage. And so I've got a Kibana homepage here, and you can see I built a dashboard, which is in the tile view here, is showing the service operations that we saw here on this page, right? So if you go back into the main page, you see these 3 service operations. I'm displaying that as a Kibana visualization in a tile. So you can see all those 3 service operations here. And when I drill into it, I go into the detail view, and I built out a few additional dashboards, visualizations, which is this is like a tag cloud which displays the service operation names, and then you can see the same pie chart here. There's a horizontal bar chart, and then there's also a vertical bar chart here with some time scaling capabilities. And I can do a similar type of drill down that I did on the application details page. I can go in here and say, okay, show me all the user profile messages, and then that automatically updates everything here. And I can now drill into the transaction just like how I did on that other page, and I can go and look up the XML and stuff like that, right? So a very similar user approach, but it's actually a different user experience, right? I'm getting to the same data, but I have a better user interface. And I guess it's not the greatest example, but for proof of concept, I'm just showing this data, how you can actually display this in Kibana, right? So that's what I built. So how do we do this, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about now and go through all the different steps involved. And so the first step is that we know I went into Integration Broker and I said, okay, I want to take this data and display it in Kibana, right? That's the end goal. So we need to go through Elasticsearch. We need to build some Elasticsearch indexes first, and then get into Kibana to configure all this. How do we get the data into Kibana? We need to build a PS query. So we need to build a PS query because that will be the data source for our search framework. And so typically, PeopleSoft uses connected query because connected query is kind of easy to build some complex data mappings and everything. But in my case, it was very simple. So I built a simple PS query. Let me show you that step real quick. So I'm going to navigate to reporting tools, query manager, and I'm going to look up my query here, which is this guy. And so most of you know how to build a PS query, right? I'm not going to bore you with the details. Very simple. You just take whatever data you want and just select the data tables and basically select all the fields that you want. One of the requirements for PS query to be used as a data source for Kibana is that, data source for Elasticsearch search framework is that you need to create a drilling URL, right? So here it is. So this is the drilling URL. So you have to have a drilling URL, because why do we need that is that if you go into this actual detail view or and you click on these transactions, you see that drilling capability, right? This comes in the form of the query's drilling URL. So you need to create a drilling URL so that it will be able to generate that URL for that transaction. Also, the same applies if you search in here in global search, you will see a drilling capability, right? That's dependent on this URL. So you need to have one of these. And the other second requirement is that you need to have a last updated date time stamp. And why we need this is so that when we build those search indexes, you can build it off of a time scale, and you can also do incremental builds based off the last updated date time stamp, right? So that's one of the reasons why you need to have a prompt of a last updated date time stamp. And of course, you need to have the drilling URL selected as a field, the one that you configured just now. And lastly, you need to set up this criteria with that last updated date time stamp, so that when Elasticsearch builds these indexes, it's able to use that prompt as a way to kind of time scale and do some incremental indexing. So that is high level building the PS query, right? So once we build the PS query, that's the data source, we can now go into the search framework and start building the configurations necessary within PeopleSoft for search indexing, right? So how do we do that? So we navigate into People Tools, and there's a search framework folder, and you go into the designer folder, and then there's the search definition. So this is very simple configuration. So if you go into, I built one out already here. So this is the one that I built for the asynchronous messages. And you can see that the last updated date time stamp that we built in the PS query and the URL, those two things are here configured. So we can select those two requirements, and you can have your title and summary view of the data that's presented in the Elasticsearch. Very simple config, really. You can select all the fields that you want to index, and also if you want any of those to be part of the facets. And quickly, I want to show you the security options here. For this proof of concept, I didn't use any security, but you can set up two types of security. One is you can say this search index is dependent on this one particular role, and you can, as long as the users have that role, they'll be able to see the data. Or you can do that document level security where you get in at a role level, basically, where you can say, just like how we have role level security in PeopleSoft, the very same concept applies to Elasticsearch as well. So once you okay, that's the search definition, and we also need to build something called the search category. It's just a way of collecting different search indexes. Basically, nothing much to this. It is just a config we need to build, and here I created one. My search category has only got one search definition, but you can have more than one in here to kind of group different search indexes, definitions together into a category. And one of the things that you'll see here is there's a search group. You want to select this if you want this particular search category to appear in the global search. This is not a requirement for Kibana, because Kibana will directly access the data from Elasticsearch. It's not going through this global search. But if you want your search index data to be displayed in the global search, you want to select that checkbox here. And also along the same lines, for the global search to work, you also need to set up this other config that's called the defined search context, which is again a straightforward config. If you go into the context type of home page, you'll find all the search categories that are defined for the global search, and also the sequence of how it will go through them. And you can see I've entered my category here as well. And if you compare this to the search categories that are available in global search here, that will match what you see in the search context. So this is how global search will know what are the search indexes that it needs to use for the global search piece. So that is really all we need to do from a PeopleSoft side, right? Configuration wise. But this configuration is just in PeopleSoft. So we need to deploy that into Elasticsearch now. So how are we going to do that? The first step is, so you go into administration, and there's something called deploy and delete object. And so here is where you'll see all the search definitions. You'll see the status of the deploy and also the crawl status. And it's very simple as just selecting this search index of yours and then just deploying them. And you can see that the status will change to deployed. And the success is actually, so when you do the deploy step here, what happens is, let me go back to my slide here. The config we built in PeopleSoft is deployed onto Elasticsearch. We're only moving the metadata here, right? What I mean by that is the search indexing has not happened yet. It's just telling Elasticsearch that, hey, this is how my search is going to look like. These are my metadata definition about my search. So it's just sending that information into Elasticsearch. And then there's a step where we actually build the indexes after this. And that is the crawl status. And you'll see the success message after this build process. And that happens in batch because it could be quite heavy in performance in some cases. So where is that page? So you go into schedule search index here, and there's my run control page. And you can build a full index, or you can build an incremental index, really, and then kick off this process. Once this process completes, you'll see that status to be successful on the Elasticsearch, and on the search definition deploy status. And so once that is done, we can go back to the slide here, and you can see the PS query, data source, and search framework config is built. We've done the deploy, and we've also built the indexes. Now Elasticsearch it's got the search indexes. How we can verify this is we can go into global search, and because I've configured global search, I can actually go in here and search for user profiles is one of the service operations that I've built. And it should produce the results, and so I can kind of tell that it's working, right? So you can see it's a little bit slow, but you can see all these profile transactions here. So we built the foundation to now actually go into Kibana, right? So this is the piece that we will be looking at next. Let me go back in to this. Hopefully everyone's doing okay. I hope screen sharing and everything is working fine. Let me go back to my remote computer. Okay. We built everything necessary, like I said, in Elasticsearch. Now we can go into Kibana, right? And then do the dashboards that we built just now. Well, how do you log into Kibana? So that's the next step, right? Let me go back up here, go into search framework. Obviously, you can ask your admins, they'll provide you the URL, but this is also set up in the search instance definition. And I'm going to show you that instance here. So that's the Elasticsearch. And in 858, you can also see there's a Kibana definition here, and you can see the host name and the port set up for Kibana. So this is how you configure the Kibana host here. So you basically need to get to this host. In my case, it's the same as my PIA. As you can see, the port is different. It's 5601. So I'm going to take this host and go to 5601, and it will open up the Kibana application, the administrative page for me to go in and configure things. Now, how did I just go in like that? Because PeopleSoft has a plugin in Kibana where it provides a single sign-on capability. So because I have logged in and have a PS token here, Kibana is able to recognize that on the back end and take me straight into the application, right? So that's how you log into the administrative page. And so the first step in here in Kibana is that the search indexes that we built in Elasticsearch, we need to reference that in Kibana, so that once you have a reference to that, you can start building index visualizations and dashboards on top of that reference. That's called an index pattern in Kibana. And I'll show you how to build that. So here you'll see a bunch of icons on the side, and this one here is the management icon. So you want to click on that and go into index pattern. So you can see there are a bunch of them created, and here's the management icon. This is the one that I clicked just now. And if you click on index patterns, you'll see there are a bunch of them created by Oracle. These three, I believe, are created by Oracle, and these are the ones that I created. And it is basically a pattern that matches the search index definitions in Elasticsearch. And why do we need this pattern, right? So how do you create this? For example, if I just say create index and I just search for my index name. So you see that my index name, and then it says there's a star, right? Usually you can have a star and few other type of pattern matching. Because the search index is created in Elasticsearch has the search definition name here, and then it also has the database name appended to it. That's how PeopleSoft builds the search indexes in Elasticsearch. Now, if you reference this one particular definition, then if you go into the next database, you'll have to rebuild one of these, right? So that's why you want to pattern match it so that it kind of gets to the index regardless of what database it is as you go through different environments. And that's how I understand this, why you need to have an index pattern. So it kind of is more flexible than just one index name or one particular database, right? So that's basically all there is to it. So you can see in my case, I have my index name and then a star, so that it'll pull in whether it's the dev database, the test database, production. It can pull in those indexes accordingly, right? So that's the first step, is to create the index pattern. I have done that already. And then you can see a few other icons here. This is the visualization icon, and then this is the dashboard icon. So we want to first build some visualizations, and then we can add them onto dashboards. Visualizations are kind of like how we have tiles in PeopleSoft. They are individual visualizations, and you can take those and add them into dashboards. And dashboards are very similar to dashboards in PeopleSoft or home pages, right? Where you can take different tiles and add them onto dashboards and home pages. Same concept here, but we're going to now build a visualization. So if I go into this visualization area, as you can, as I showed you already, I built a bunch of them for the integration broker stuff, right? So I have them here. If you look at the pie chart, you can see that it is referencing my Elasticsearch index here. This is the index pattern, and this one is not showing anything because it's just looking in the last 15 minutes. But if I go back a little in time, you can see the data that's in real time, how it's going to look in the visualization. And I'll show you how to build this. It's very easy, and especially because it's open source, there's a lot of information out there to figure this out. But for example, I can build one of these. I can it'll first ask me which index pattern you want to reference, right? So here's where you select it, and then it is doing the metrics off of count, and then you can split this by different ways. And I'm going to use terms is kind of like fields, I think, here. And again, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm just you can just figure it out, really. So you can find the fields that have been indexed on the Elasticsearch, and what we're looking for here is the operation name, right? So IB operation name and execute, and you would see in real time how it's going to look, and then all you have to do is just save this visualization and you'll be done. So that's how I went about building a bunch of these visualizations. So once you have the visualizations, now we can go into the dashboards, right? So we need, in my case, I built two, and in most cases, you would want to build two. And why is because if you go back and see that demo that I showed you, you see this, this is the tile view, right? In the tile view, you want to have one dashboard with just one tile for the most part, as far as I understand it. That's because you only have so much space in a tile, right? You don't want to have multiple visualizations, and that's going to look really complex. You may have more than one, but you might need to have maybe a 4x4 or something, or a 2x2 type of tile. In this case, it's 1x2, so you can see slightly bigger tile, but you want to limit the number of dashboards on your tile. So you can see this is the tile dashboard. I just have one tile here, or one visualization. And then there's the actual detailed dashboard, which has all the other visualizations. That'll be the drill down Kibana visualization. So as you can see, this is very similar to how it looks in PeopleSoft. And so we've done all the steps in Kibana that we need to do. So we built the index pattern, we built the visualization, and we built the dashboards, right? So we're done with Kibana, and now we're ready to go into PeopleSoft and configure these as Kibana visualizations within the application. So that's what we're going to do next. Let me take a sip of water real quick. And we want to navigate to the same place here. Kibana is also in the same area within search framework and administration. So the first step is to kind of pull this configuration that we built in Kibana into PeopleSoft, right? So that's the import process. There's an import Kibana dashboard page, and very straightforward. All you have to do is just create a new row, and if you do a find here, it will display all the dashboards that we built in Kibana. So PeopleSoft has a way to go and pull those information for us. And you can see that I have my IB dashboard and the other one that I built here for the tile view. I've already done the import, but all we need to do is just add that in here and click on the import button, and you'll see a success message. And once you see that, then you can be sure that it's been imported. What it's really doing is, as far as I understand, it actually takes that information, and you can see that it's creating a JSON file. I think it stores it kind of like in JSON format within PeopleSoft. So it knows all the details about the dashboards within Kibana. And that's basically it. That's the import step. So we import the dashboards. Now we can go ahead and configure them, secure them, and do what's necessary within PeopleSoft, right? That's the next step that we want to do, is to configure these within PeopleSoft. So import is done. And what we want to do is go into the Kibana Visualizations page. Save this. And here is where you can see there's a tile and component level. We'll talk about the component level in a minute. But the tile is what I used in this example that I showed you, right? So you can come in here and add a new row, create a tile. You'll give a content reference name, and then it give it a label. And there's a full view, like I was showing you. The full view is going to be the detail with all the visualizations, and then the tile view is going to be the restricted view of your dashboard. And you saw that my tile was a 1x2, right? So you can give the height as well. The height is 1 and width is 2. And so when you create a row here for the tile visualization, what it actually creates that content reference for us behind the scenes. So if I go in, I think I'm running out of time a little bit. Might need to speed up a little bit. But okay, if you go into People's Tools portal and structure and content, it will build a tile content reference for us. I want to show that real quick. So if I go into fluid structure and content, fluid pages, and PeopleSoft applications, you will see that it created a tile for me here. And if I click on the edit, you can see that all this has happened behind the scenes. PeopleSoft is doing this for us. You can see that it's referencing that that PeopleSoft component here. That's the Kibana component. And then it's saying that there's going to be the detail view, and this is the dashboard name. So this IB dashboard is the dashboard in Kibana that it's going to display in the detail view. And then there is also the dynamic content, which is the same component, but it will be passing some different parameters here. And you can see that it's also done that setup for us, the dynamic tile content. You can see that it's referencing the tile dashboard that we created, right? So it's the same component, but it displays it slightly differently depending on whether it's dynamic tile content or whether it's actually the detail view as well. That's it configuration wise. So we have set up the tile, and then there's the final step, or last but one, is to create the security on this. So there's a Kibana privileges page, and here per dashboard you can set up a role to that dashboard and also say whether it's a view or a edit option. The edit is if you want your users to be able to go into Kibana and make some changes, like how I showed you, right? I did all those changes. If you want your users to be able to do that, you can set the edit. But I would assume that we just want our regular users to just be able to view things, not actually go in and edit. That probably is something that would be done by admins or analysts, right? Anyway, so I've set it up to PeopleSoft user, as you can see here. This IB dashboard and IB tile dashboard, I've set it up on PeopleSoft user because I'm logging in as PS on this POM image, and I have view access so I can see this as well. And so that's it. Let me go back to my slide here. So we've configured and secured the Kibana visualization and dashboards in PeopleSoft. Now the final step is to deploy this back into Kibana, right? Why do we need to do this? Because we set up all the security and the style view and all that, right? So we want to deploy this back into Kibana so that Kibana knows about this configuration and that whole integration works seamlessly. And there's a page for this that we can navigate to. It's called deploy Kibana dashboard. So we took the dashboards, imported it into PeopleSoft, configured it. Now we're going to redeploy it into Kibana. Again, very straightforward. You just come in here, select your dashboards, and then just click on deploy, and you will see the status to be deployed. And once you have that, then you can be sure that everything is done, right? So that's the end-to-end. And so you can see that steps are not that complex, really. And so if we took the example of integration broker data and we displayed that as Kibana visualizations in PeopleSoft, so we really can prove that we can take this framework, use this for any use case, really, and not just be restricted by what Oracle is delivering. I guess that's the point, what I'm trying to make here. So you can see that IB data, again, if you missed the initial piece of the demo, there's the detailed view that we built as well. So that's all I had from an end-to-end methodology point of view. Let me quickly check if there's any. Okay, looks like there are no immediate questions. I'll take them at the end.
Shashank, there are a couple questions in Q&A tab.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me check. No, okay. Someone's asking if I encountered any issues importing Kibana dashboards back into PeopleSoft. No, I did not really. But I know that I'm working on a demo system, right? So things are probably working fine. There may be some additional configuration that needs to be done at the admin level. Are there any issues or challenges I can expect when adding a second or third, fourth PS environment to the Elk stack to produce Kibana visualizations? Not that I am aware. That's how it's supposed to work in theory, at least. That the L stack is meant to be able to point to different environments, as far as I understand. So I don't see any issues. But yes, you may have some challenges, as we all do with anything, right? As we are implementing things, as we're trying to find out different things. But I'm going to hold on the questions for a bit. I have a few things I want to share, and then I'll come back to the questions. So I want to share a few tricks that I found, or a few things that I've built on top of this to make my life easier as I'm working on this. So one of the things is, if I log out of here, start a fresh session. Now, I showed you that I found the Kibana URL going into that config, right? And then I logged in, I just went to that URL. Now, if I do this again, what was it? So if I log out of this for any reason, if I had to log in directly to this Kibana application for the administrative side of things, then I'll have to enter my username, password, and then the database name as well. So this is where, you know, how we were talking about, can we have multiple environments pointing to the same stack? Yes, we can. That's why we do this. Kind of like how we use App Designer, right? When we log into App Designer, we also enter the database name there. So this is the login process, really, if you go directly into Kibana, not single sign-on from PeopleSoft. And then you get into this dashboard area, which is what we did from before being in PeopleSoft. But I logged out and had to log back in. I didn't find there's an easy, well, one thing what I was thinking was there's actually single sign-on already, right? So if you go in here in PeopleSoft, if you look at this, this dashboard is showing up just because I'm logged into PeopleSoft. That means there's already single sign-on, some way that Kibana knows who I am. So I thought maybe we should leverage that and kind of have a link, a shortcut within PeopleSoft that'll take us to Kibana instead of having to go in and enter username, password, database just to get into the administrative side, right? So I was looking into this a little bit, and if you look at the developer mode on this page, right, and if you look at the actual frame of what is being displayed here, you can see that first of all, I was talking about the Kibana visualizer being a PeopleSoft component, right? So this is the PeopleSoft component here, and you can see that PeopleSoft component name and everything, and you have some parameters that are going into it, right? That's how it's able to pull that particular dashboard and display it. What it's doing is that PeopleSoft component is just a simple, it has a simple page, and it has a HTML area, and in that HTML area, you can see this HTML area here. And then in this HTML area, it is actually displaying an iframe, which actually points to that Kibana URL, right? Now you see here in here, okay, I need to get out of this and come back in. So that's the iframe here, and you can see actually the URL of where Kibana is where we're going in Kibana, right? We have the host name, the port, and then you can see the user is being passed as a parameter, user equals PS, and then it's passing a token. And then that's how Kibana knows, okay, it's going to recognize you as that user and validate if you're really that user using that token. And I think it has some backend ways to figure that out on its own. And so I was digging into that component, right? So you look into this page, oops. That's the page. As I said, there's a simple HTML area here on that, and I went into the page people code, and you can see here there is some code where it determines initially the high level host name and port, right? That is basically the config table, the search engine, the search instance page. It has a host name and port. It figures that piece out. And then there's a bunch of code here that's not really something I'm interested in. But if you look at this user security piece, right, there is some people code here that does that work of that URL generation, right? So what it's doing, how I understand this is there's actually a PeopleSoft table called Kibana Security here, PTSF Kibana Sec, right? And it is writing a UUID into that table for that user with the last updated date and stamp. So it generates that token for us and stores it in here. And then so Kibana is able to validate against this table on the back end, right? That's all there is to that code. And then you can see it's passing that user here, that token, as well as the database name as parameters on top of this additional URI, right? So the code is there. So what I did was I took this code, I just put it into a iScript. So you can see I have a custom iScript here. And that iScript, I'm doing the same logic of figuring out the host name and port from that config table. And then I just took that user security piece to append those parameters, the username, the token, and the database name, really, right? And finally, once I construct that URL, which is exactly the same code that's in that page, and then I just do a response or redirect on that iScript. So the why I did an iScript is because I can take this and create a content reference within PeopleSoft, right? So what I did is if I navigate to People Tools, Portal, Structure and Content, I put it in People Tools, Search Framework, guess where the rest of the stuff is, but you can place this anywhere. See here under the administration, I created a content reference called Access Kibana Home. And here I've referenced that the iScript that I built. So when I click on this content reference, it's going to fire the iScript, and then it'll redirect me to that URL. That way I don't have to manually go into that page, figure out what that URL is, all that stuff. All I can do is, if I need to go into Kibana, I can just log into the PIA, and then I can navigate to that URL that should take me to Kibana. I can show you. Let me log out of Kibana here so you can see that it's actually taking me in. So now if I go back to Search Framework, Administration, and click on this Access Kibana Home, it should pass my credentials and everything, and now it's doing a single sign-on and taking me into the application, right? So that way I don't have to remember. Of course, I know the database name, and I'm sure you know it, but it kind of makes it a little bit easier. So I don't have to figure out the host names and everything for each of the Kibana administrative pages. So that's something I built. If you think that's useful, I don't see it may be something that comes in the next releases, but this is one way to kind of work around that. What else do I have here? Okay, I have some time. I'm gonna go through the other way of displaying Kibana visualization. So here we are presenting this as a tile, and then from there we jump off into the detail view, right? If I go back into this page, the Kibana visualizations page, so we saw this, the visualizations, here's how we created the tile visualization, right? There's also, if you see, there's another tab here called component level, and you can set up Kibana visualizations on components as well. And what this does is it creates related content for that component, and it'll display that Kibana visualization in that component's context as well, related content. And you can have like a full view and tile view as well, just like how we had on the tile as well. And let me open a new window and navigate to this page. I've configured it. I just picked some random component and I attached my dashboard just to show you guys a demo. So if I go into employee self-service, personal details, and addresses, you can see that the related content is showing up here as basically, I mean, the dashboard is showing up as related content. That's a tile view. And then if I click on expand, I'll go into the detailed view. So that's another way of representing Kibana dashboards or getting to Kibana dashboards from PeopleSoft. Now, so someone was asking, can we display this Kibana visualizations on classic components? So this config only allows us to associate Kibana visualization with fluid components, right? But that is, I guess, a limitation. I don't know, that might be a strong word, but that is a limitation of this particular page. Right now, it can only work if it is a fluid page. But really, if you think about it, right, if I go back in here and go into that Kibana detail page, for instance, this is a PeopleSoft page, right? It's a PeopleSoft page with some URL parameters. So why can we not do this in Classic? You should be able to do this, but we can do this on our own. So I'll show you how I did that. Because you can associate any content as a related content, whether it's Classic or Fluid. So what I ended up doing was I had to create a related content service, which is basically the component that we see here, right? As I was showing you before, this is the component with some additional parameters. So that's the component name. And then we have the parameter for going in as a detailed view, and then the actual dashboard that we want to see. So that's all. That's what I got over here is the component name, right? The component is attached as the service. And you can see some parameters associated here. Let me show you. There are 3 parameters I added. One is the dboard, which is what will tell that page that we are going into this as a detailed view, not a tile view. And then the actual dashboard name. So you want to give that. And then the modeless parameter is just so that you don't have that additional header on top. So that is what I configured here. I configured the service this way, and then I tied this up with the PeopleSoft classic component. So if you go in here, let me search for asynchronous services. And just as an example, right, this is probably not the best use case again, but this is just a proof of concept. So I have that asynchronous services integration broker page, and I'm associating that service that I created here. And I'm just passing some hard-coded values here, really. As I said, this URL gen is what will tell that component that we're going in detail view. and then that's the actual dashboard that I want to display. So once I create this, let me enable this service and save this. And if I go back to that asynchronous services, integration broker, service operations, monitoring, asynchronous services, now you can see that Kibana Visualizer here, right? Why not? I mean, because it can be done. And so that's one way to do it. Obviously, there are some things to consider here where you just want to use it where it's appropriate, but I think it does add value to be on Classic as well, not just in Fluid. So this is how you would do it. You just have to set up some additional config to make that happen, not using the delivered approach, but you can actually see that whole Kibana, exactly the same thing. You can do all those things that we did in that other page. Yeah, some reason that did not work. I didn't try that before, but that is the example of actually doing Kibana visualizations for Classic components as a related content. And finally, I'll wrap up with a couple of topics, and then I'll try to answer as many questions. Even if I go a few minutes over, I'm sure we'll have some time to get to it in the next session. Now, we built all these things, right? So I showed you how we can use the framework of People Tools to build end-to-end the whole dashboards and everything. Now, that's great, but then how do we do this? How do we move this from dev, test, and then production, right? That's something that I always think about anytime we build anything. How do we migrate this? I don't want to be sitting and doing all these things manually in every environment. I just want to be done with it in dev and then just migrate, right? So how do we migrate all these configurations that we built? So if I go back in here, the actual steps, all these things that we built in PS Query, obviously you can migrate PS Query in an App Designer project. And similarly, the search definitions can also be migrated in App Designer. So all you need to do is go find the search definition. And in this case, I have my search definition here. So we want to insert that into a project. So pick your search definition, and then you also want to select all the related definitions, like the search categories, attributes, any queries, all that will get pulled in if you select this search definition. So it migrates all the config that we built, so we don't have to redo this in the test environments for the search definitions point of view. But there are steps we need to do, post steps, once we migrate this. You saw that we did that whole deploy, right? We deployed that into Elasticsearch. That's something that needs to be done as a manual post step. And also the build search indexes piece, we have to do that as well manually, because that's not something that happens automatically, or you can migrate. You need to build that in the target environments. But at least it's better than actually having to build all the config from scratch and then build, and then actually doing the build process. So that is to do with the search definitions. What about the Kibana, all this Kibana stuff that we built, right? How do we migrate those things, the dashboards and the security and everything? So there is an application data set that's provided. So this is not App Designer based, but it's actually using the lifecycle tools within People Tools. So you go into lifecycle tools, migrate data, and I built a migration project here just to show you as an example. That's the Kibana migration. There are some delivered data sets that are provided for Kibana, so we can just go ahead and use those. So these two that we see here, they are the main guys for migrating the Kibana, the dashboard that we imported, and then also the changes that we had made in the visualizations page. All that can be migrated using these two data sets. And then this role map is the one that will move that security that we tied up with the dashboards. That is the data set we will use. And then this content reference is just nothing specific to Kibana, this one, but it is when we created that tile, it created a tile content reference, right? if we do that, we also need to move that. Otherwise, when we go into when we move the config, it's not going to move that tile along with it. So that's a related object that we need to take along. So that's why I have that PSPRSM CREF data set as well. If I move this, then all the configurations are built in the target environment, and this whole the JSON not only has the effect of actually bringing it into PeopleSoft from Kibana, but it also is the representation of that dashboard in Kibana format in PeopleSoft. So you can just move that up to the target environment and then deploy it. So there is also a post step for this as well, where once you move all this config Kibana related stuff, you want to do the final deploy step that we did, because that's how the target Kibana environment will have all these things deployed onto the Kibana side of the house. So everything works seamlessly. So this is how you would migrate things. So I think that's, wow, I've gone over time here. Sorry, guys. So yeah, if you're free to leave, if you have any other sessions to go, I'm apologize for going over. Let me go through the questions here one more time. Encounter any issues? Are there any issues, challenges that we expect? I think I've gone through them for the most part. Yes, so there's a good question here from Victor. Even though you build the dashboard in Kibana and import it into PeopleSoft, you still have to deploy it back to PeopleSoft. Yes, that's he's asking if that is the case. Yes. So if you tweak or modify things, how do you handle that, right? So yes, that is exactly the purpose of this. So if you go back into this deploy step, right? Let me see if I have this here on the favorites. No. Let me go back here real quick. People tools, search, framework, admin, and the deploy. It also has an update option here. You see this update option? So you can select. So he asked a very good question. How do you manage changes, right? It's not just once and done. You're going to, over the course of time, you're going to make changes to these things. How do you keep things in sync between Kibana and within PeopleSoft? What if you make changes in Kibana as well, right? You have to re-import them. You have to reconfigure them potentially and redeploy depending on what you're doing. And similarly, if you make changes within PeopleSoft, like you change the security, for instance, or you add it to another tile, whatever you do, you can go back and update and redeploy. But yes, it goes full circle, really. That's why I have this slide here. So you start with PeopleSoft, you deploy the Elasticsearch, that becomes the foundation for Kibana, right? And then Kibana is able, we build stuff in Kibana, bring it into PeopleSoft, configure things in PeopleSoft, and then put it back into Kibana so that Kibana knows about things we've done in PeopleSoft as well. So yes, that's a very good question. That is why I had that methodology diagram there. Any other questions? I think seems like that's about it. So thanks everyone. It's hard to see who's on the call and stuff like that. This whole it is a nice format for sure, but I'm still getting used to this SL event. So, but yes, I really appreciate all of you guys joining and taking the time. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you the next time. And thank you again. And yeah, you guys are free to go if you have other things to go and watch. And also it's lunchtime, so have a good lunch. Okay. All right. See you. Thanks.